Hello everybody, this is Dave here, and I'm going to take a moment to talk about track planning and what I did to do my track planning and how I picked N scale as the size I am going to model here. But here's a treat for you guys. I'm real into trivia. I actually went to UMass Amherst and have a degree in history, so I love history. And right back here, you'll see on my computer screen is North Station. Now the building's no longer there, but North Station in Boston, Massachusetts still exists, and actually it's an underground station now where the orange line and I believe the blue line of the subway system meet, as well as commuter rail coming in from northern Massachusetts. This building here was torn down to build the Boston Garden, and the tracks were left below, so kind of the same idea as Penn Station in New York City in the 1960s having Madison Square Garden built on top of it, except that was done 40 years earlier. Now, it's a neat building. Sadly, it's gone, but South Station in Boston still exists, and I'll probably talk about South Station in a different video because they did really interesting renovations there in the 80s and 90s to keep that a viable transportation center. So just keep that in mind for future reference, and let's jump into track planning. So the first thing I had to ask myself is, how much space do I have? Now, I originally modeled an HO scale on a 4-foot by 8-foot layout. Now the cool thing about that is that's the size of a sheet of plywood. It's a very common size for train layouts, but I don't have 4 feet by 8 feet of space anymore. So I had asked myself, what am I going to do? Well, I said I'll model an N scale. N scale is about half the size, and I can build a layout in 2 feet by 4 feet. I'm sorry. But what are these scales? What am I talking about here? So I'm actually going to come down here. HO scale is the most common scale in model railroading, and it's 1 inch equals 87 inches or thereabouts. Okay, so that's one size, but I don't have enough space to build a layout big enough for that. So I said I got to go down a size. So I went to N scale. N scale is 1 inch equals 160 inches. A little bit smaller, but I still get a bit of detail. It's about half the size, so I can build really the same complexity of a layout in half the space. There's another scale that's bigger than that, and that's bigger than HO rather, is O scale, and I want to just talk about that because that's the size of the old Lionel trains that our fathers and grandfathers may have had, and that's 1 inch equals 48 inches. Now HO originally meant half O. Okay, that's how it came to be called HO. It's not quite that breakdown, but it is. N scale actually stands for 9 millimeters, and that's the distance between the two tracks is 9 millimeters. So that's how N scale got its name. There's a scale called Z scale, which is smaller than N, but much, much, much more expensive. N and HO scale have about the same price point. O scale costs a little bit more, and Z scale costs a heck of a lot more. So I'm sticking with things I can afford to do here. Cool thing about Z scale is you could build that 2 foot by 4 foot layout's complexity, that 4 foot by 8 foot layout's complexity, in a suitcase. That's how small the trains are. Let's take a look here at my track planning. Atlas publishes books on track planning, and here are some of the layouts that they have in their books. None of them really appealed to me for a couple reasons. One, they don't have a lot of sidings and places for industry to be put on the track, and I want to be able to play with my trains and be a big kid at heart and deliver things to different industries. The other thing that they lack is for the most part, they're either very flat or overly complex if they start adding in elevations and things like that. So I need something in between. I googled small track plans and different things for N scale, and I came to this Mike's small track plan page and actually modified one of his layouts. And he's actually a really nice guy, and he has a lot of great information on his website. But on these 2 foot by 4 foot layouts, I like the first one there. I just made some changes to it, but I really liked this first one I came to. Looked at the other ones, but for simplicity of building, that was the one for me. Now, stop for a second and talk about this. His layouts were designed in a piece of software that Atlas used to give away called Right Track software, which they no longer do. They can't even get you a copy of it. But two things I discovered doing a little bit of research and trying to find way to archive some old track plans I had on an old backup drive from my former railroading days. I contacted Atlas, and their software, excuse my cough there, their software was the free version of a software called WinRail, which I'll put in the links. WinRail has a viewer you can download in order to look at Mike's track plans. Okay, and you can also purchase it if you want to. And Atlas now actually recommends a software called AnyRail, which is also a free track planning software. So you could be actually use these as just a starting point to get going and maybe design your own layout from scratch. But let me show you the changes I made to Mike's track plan here. So here you can see in the green area is the basis of the of Mike's plan, and I'm actually may or may not ever build this extension here. So this is for the far future. And I won't go into a lot of detail here. I was just sort of playing around, seeing how we could expand this into another 2 foot by 4 foot area. But up here where it actually looks like a bridge, I'm actually going to build it as a tunnel. Tunnels help break up visual lines a bit, and everyone likes seeing a train come in and out of a tunnel. And over here, rather than this curved track, I'm actually going to come straight out. But this area right here, where my mouse is the area that I modified from Mike's original plan. So that should be kind of interesting there, and I'll have this turn out with the straight track coming straight up, so I can actually lay out a couple cars in order for my railroad to come and pick them up and deliver them to the different industries I'll have around my shop here, or it's not my shop, my layout. So that's my basic layout planning idea here, and I'll do another video on prototype modeling. I'm not into like being real hard on prototypes, but you should kind of pick a geographical area that you want to model, I think, anyways, and stick to that, but still have fun. Set limits and do track planning and things to be fun. Some people have a lot of fun being real sticklers for super accuracy. Some people don't. So that's what that is. And I'll mention one more thing here. Breaking up visual sight lines. If this was all just on a flat table and this elevation didn't go from 0 to 2 inches and have a tunnel, to break up my line of sight between the front of my layout and the back of the layout, or side to side, it's all flat. It would look small to me. And the reason is, actually, let's do the math. I'll show you why. So I have a layout that's 4 feet long, that's 48 inches, and I'll multiply that by 160. And I'll divide that by 12. 4 feet is 640 feet in N scale. That's not that long. That's a little bit less than 2 football fields when you count the end zones. Okay? So that's not that big. So what am I saying here is you can have a lot of action, a lot of stuff in a small space, but if you break up the visual sight lines a little bit, it all becomes little individual scenes. And I'll show you some photography tricks I'll do when I go to photograph my layout once it's completed here. But that's just something to keep in mind. You got to break up those visual scenes a little bit, and you'll look like you'll have a lot more action in a lot smaller space. So that's something I kind of want to mention to you guys, because 640 feet isn't that long. I think when I took the train from Springfield, Massachusetts to Chicago, Illinois, I'm pretty sure my train was longer than that. Okay, actually, I'm sure of it because I had, I think, railroad cars about 70 feet times, I think there were 9 cars. Okay, 4 feet would be the scale of my. It'd be about the length of the Lakeshore Limited. So that's just something to keep in mind there. Break up those visual scenes, and I think you can have a lot more interesting fun here. So hear more about my track planning as this is getting built, because a lot of times you start building things and realize you want to make a change on the go and on the fly. And basically, again, everybody, just have fun.